Welcome to Amidst the Chaos, the podcast where we dare to find God in the middle of real life, not just the highlight reel. I'm your host, Amber Gallion, and around here we build on one foundation only, Jesus. In each episode, I'll share my journey with God, wins, wounds, questions and all, and how He brings order, clarity, and peace into the chaos of everyday life. So take a breath, bring whatever you're carrying today, and let's lean into the one who never changes, even when everything else does. Hey friend, welcome to Amidst the Chaos. I'm Amber Gallion, and in case you missed it, last Friday I started a new series. It's called Discipleship Evangelism, and it's based on a book that is written by Andrew Womack and Don Crow. It is a total of 48 lessons, and I will link the lessons in the description of each episode so that you can read the lesson for yourself. And if you want to dive in deeper, you can use the questions that are added to the lessons that include the answer key. And in the episodes, I'll share my own revelations and add knowledge that I've learned through Charis Bible College or through reading the Bible. So today is lesson 2 called Salvation by Grace, and this one is written by Don Crow. If you don't feel like reading the file that I added in the description box, I'll give you a quick summary. This lesson explains that salvation is by grace and not about being good enough. It uses Jesus' parable of the Pharisee who is self-righteous and trusting in his own works, and the tax collector who is humbled and asking for mercy. And the key point about this is that the tax collector went home justified because he depended on God's mercy, while pride and self-reliance block you from receiving that gift. Grace is defined as God's free, undeserved favor received by those who humble themselves and call on Him. When we discuss these lessons in class, we're always asked to prepare one of them and teach them to the other students. This was one of the lessons that I was asked to teach to someone else. Together with another student, we prepared the lesson and talked about what stood out for us. And that is what I'm going to share with you today. As I mentioned in the summary, grace is defined as God's free, undeserved favor received by those who humble themselves and call on Him. So let's zoom in on the undeserved favor part. Based on the spiritual laws, because the apple was eaten in the Garden of Eden and a curse fell upon mankind, we don't deserve grace. But God gave it to us because He loves us. And He's not looking to see if we actually deserve it before He gives it. He offers it freely. In the second to last paragraph of the file, it talks about the word charis. It is the Greek word used in the New Testament to describe the word grace. And if you add MA to it, you get the word charisma, which here it says it means a specific manifestation or form of God's grace. And the other student I was preparing this class with mentioned that people would tell him, "You have charisma." So he was wondering if that meant that he was a specific manifestation or form of God's grace. And we believe that on the moments that he really is charismatic, the answer would be yes. And then I added that charisma is something that he had, as he mentioned. It wasn't something that he earned, just like God's grace. And not only that, because he was radiating charisma and therefore acting as a specific manifestation or form of God's grace, he was actively offering God's grace to other people, without checking beforehand if the recipient of that charisma was actually deserving. The recipient either takes it or not, just like the people taking or rejecting salvation. And them rejecting or accepting your charisma doesn't change who you are or how you act. It's just something that you give out. And this reminds me of Matthew chapter 5, verse 14, where Jesus says, "You are the light of the world." And then in verse 16, "Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven." So this means that in the first part where he says you are the light of the world, it is something who you are. and it has nothing to do with what you do, so nothing to do with your works. But by not hiding that light, you're showcasing to the world that you made a decision to follow Jesus. And by actively stepping out and being the light of the world, you're showing God's grace to people who may not know them, who may be living in the dark. So by receiving the salvation, you become light of the world. And then by stepping out to show that light to the world, you are showcasing good works that glorify your Father in heaven. Those good works have nothing to do with earning the right to be saved. Those good works merely add to the kingdom because more people will see the light and join us. I'm now reminded of a t-shirt I once saw. It was Star Wars themed and it says, "Come to the dark side, we have cookies." And in this case, it would be a t-shirt where it says, "Come to the light where we have eternal life." So even in this context, it's about denying your flesh by rejecting the cookies and choosing to face the Spirit. And when you actively choose to face the Spirit, you also prevent becoming a Pharisee. You don't earn the grace by your good works, and you don't go out and tell other people how to live their lives according to Moses' laws. And when you don't meddle with other people's lives and simply showcasing what it is to follow Jesus, you automatically become a person that is more pleasant to be around. And suddenly you have charisma as well. And this charisma is magnetic to pull other people in. I've seen it firsthand that when I am the light of the world, when I'm truly showcasing it to other people, I see the most grumpy people turn into people who can actually smile. Okay, they probably could already, but now they're showing it. I gave them the grace that even though they looked grumpy all the time and they never said hi, I would be the light, and the warmth would melt them. Not because I'm that amazing, but because it's God's love through me. It's God's grace through me. And they want a piece of that. And it's there for them too. Of course, there's also another side to charisma. Some people would qualify to be called charismatic. They are magnetic and are drawing people in, but they are abusing that power. They're leading people away from Jesus. And it makes sense because when God has something that is good, the enemy is ready to swoop in and twist it all. And an example of that could be a charismatic leader at a church who is preaching one thing, but when you're looking at the fruits of their personal life, they're not living according to the will of God, potentially confusing people or leading them away from church or leading them into a life where they believe they need to do works to deserve or receive anything from God. So to wrap this up, God gives out grace freely without checking if you are deserving, because he knows the answer that you're not deserving based on your works, but he gives it anyway because he loves you, and that makes you deserving. And that grace that you receive, you can pass it on to other people by being the light of the world, by showing charisma. But that it's also important to continue to use your discernment when you come across someone that is charismatic. You cannot lose your salvation, but you can share it with the world. So I'd like to challenge you. I'm assuming that you have received the grace of the Lord. And I want to ask you to look at that grace. And if you are pouring from that overflow into other people, or if you're keeping it all to yourself, you are the light of the world. But have you stepped out to show it, to inspire others that are still in the dark? Jesus says in Luke chapter 10, verse 2, that the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. So, are you a laborer? All right, we'll leave it here for today. Thanks for listening to Amidst the Chaos. I'm your host, Amber Gallion, and my prayer is that today's episode helped you see Jesus a little more clearly right in the middle of your own mess and motion. If this encouraged you, share it with someone who might need the reminder that God is building order, even when life feels anything but stable. Until next time, keep walking, keep wrestling, and keep building on the only foundation that won't move, Jesus.